Well, I'm glad you're here tonight. I hope you had a nap. I didn't have a nap. I played Monopoly and came here at 4, and I've got some sweet people in the choir that have practiced for over an hour for this Easter cantata, and I'm telling you, we are whooped. It's tiring, but it's good, though. So stand with us as we sing. We're going to sing 3:15, Were You There? And we're going to sing the first, second, and third verse. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
Sometimes, don't ask me.
It causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him to the tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in a tomb? Y'all may be seated. And Grammy asked me, we weren't going to do the third. We'll do the fourth verse on Easter. Grammy told me, we went over there and just played it real quick. She said, everybody plays this differently, and they do play it differently. All right, and now we're going to do hymn 318, I believe, in a hill called Mount Calvary. And we'll do all 3 verses on this one.
There are things as we travel this earth,
shifting sand that transcend to all reasons of man.
but the things that matter the most in this world, they can never be held in our hands. And I believe in a hill called Mount Calvary, and I believe whatever the cost, and when time has surrendered and earth is no more, I'll still cling to the old rugged cross. I believe that the Christ who was slain on that cross has the power to change lives today. For he changed me completely, a new life is my That is why by the cross I will stay. I believe in a hill called Mount Calvary. And I believe whatever the cost. And when time has surrendered and earth is no more, I'll still cling to that old rugged cross. I believe that the life with its great mysteries surely someday will come to an end. But the faith will conquer the darkness and death, and will lead me at last to my friend. I believe in a hill called Mount Calvary. I believe whatever the cost. And when time has surrendered and earth is no more, I'll still cling to that old rugged cross.
Amen. What page, Grammy? 327. I moved my thing. Me and Brother Joe were talking about this morning at lunch, that we are just some people that just go with the flow. Whatever happens, if we miss a verse or we need to cut some songs or something, we just go with the flow. I know we do. Alrighty, so now we're going to sing hymn 327, The Old Rugged Cross.
On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. On that old rugged cross, so despised by the world, has a wondrous attraction for me. For the dear Lamb of God left his glory above to bear it to dark Calvary. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. And I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true, its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then he'll call me someday to my home far away, where his glory forever I'll share. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. And I will cling to the old rugged cross
Brother Joe, whichever one.
Good evening, church.
Good evening.
It's so good to see everybody here. Thank you for coming out. This is not a boat, okay? But it has a purpose. We're going to look at, in our Bibles, we're going to look at Luke chapter 10. Before we get started on little videos that I have. What's a missionary? Anybody ever heard of William Carey College? Anybody ever go there? As a couple have gone there. Some of y'all may go there one day. So where did he get the name? William Carey was a missionary. What William Carey was, he was an ordinary guy. He made shoes, and that's what he did. He made shoes, and he had a calling to missions. And he first went to some people about that calling, and they told him to go home. Didn't really need him. He said God can save people wherever he wanted, but William Carey knew in his heart that it was our responsibility to be a missionary. You know, it's our responsibility whether we go across a yard, across the street, across town, or across the world to be a missionary. And it influences our life every day. There's two main things that helps us be a missionary. One is faith in God, that God's going to provide a way. He's going to take care of the situations. The second one is compassion for people, compassion for the lost, and the desire to see the lost get saved. And when we have that, it doesn't matter where we go. We all have a purpose in sharing that, and sharing what William Carey. Yeah, William Carey was back in the around the 1800, late 1700, early 1800. It seemed like a long time ago, and it was. But he was like the modern missionary. He was a guy that, they hadn't done missionary work like him until he come along. And he felt a call to India. And he went to India. A lot of you ladies got to hear Miss Belinda the other Sunday talk about her mission trip to India. Well, William heard the call. He was faithful to God, and he knew God would take care of him. So he went. You think he was successful? Obviously he was, but you know how long it took him to get his first convert? If we go on a mission trip and stay 5 or 6 days and nothing happens, we feel like we have been a failure. Don't want to go back there. God obviously not working. 7 years. He had a son to die. Name was Peter. Peter died. His wife became mentally ill during that time. After his 8th year, he baptized his first convert. Mission work is not easy work. It takes a lot of faith, and it takes a lot of compassion, and it requires us to be compassionate for a period of time. We can't wimp out and be a missionary. We can't wimp out on our children, our neighbor either, can we? Our community. We got to be still working for those. Faith in God, compassion for each other, for the lost. William Carey had a quote, and he had a motto: expect great things from God, attempt great things for God. All right, I want you to be able to know that. Expect great things from God. Let's say that. expect great things from God, and attempt great things for God. Expect great things from God and attempt great things for God. And that's what William Carey did. He was, even though it didn't look like he was going to be successful, but he ended up right. He was a very intellectual guy. He translated the Bible into many dialects in the Indian language. And after many years, there was a lot of converts in India because of him. So expect great things from God. There's your faith. And attempt great things for God. That's your compassion. Okay? We're going to be looking at, I want you to look at Luke chapter 10. And this is one of the first times that it's in our DNA as Christians to be missionaries. Now, this group right here, they're 70. I think one book says 70, one says 72. God called them to go out. They were disciples of Jesus, and he calls them to go out as missionaries in the surrounding areas. And let's just look at that. Chapter 10 in Luke. After these things, the Lord appointed 70 others also, and sent them 2 by 2, his face into every city and place where he sent them 2 by 2 before his face into every city and place where he himself was about to go. Then he said to them, the harvest is truly great, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. Go your way. Behold, I send you as lambs among wolves. Carry neither money bag, knapsack, or sandals, and greet no one along the road. But whatever house you enter, first say, peace to this house. And if a son of peace is there, your peace will rest on it. If not, it will return to you. And remain in that same house, eating and drinking such things as they give. For the laborer of his is worthy of his wages. Do not go from house to house. Whatever city you enter, and they receive you, eat such things as set before you. And heal the sick there, and say to them, the kingdom of God has come near to you. Some things here that we can learn. First, God sends us. He sends us. These were not foreign cities. These were cities around where Jesus was going to minister. And he sends these 72 before he went. Sometimes, and actually, oftentimes, that's the way it is. God sends us to some place, somewhere, some neighbor, before he can go there. He's waiting for us to go, and then he can go and be a part of that. I don't know why God chose to use people, as flawed as we are, to be such a vital part of reaching the lost. We are to go with compassion, understanding that there are a lot of lost people out there, it says there in verse 3. We should go in humility, go as lambs among wolves. We don't know what to expect. Wolves are sneaky and dangerous, but we're to go with humility. We're to go with faith. Don't take any extra things, he said. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to provide for you. Go in power. We can have strength in God, that we know that God is giving us the power to go, whether it's to your neighbor, whether it's, we take these things literally, whether we're going to our neighbor or someone God has put on your heart. You go in with compassion, you go with humility, and we can't go any other way, can we? We go in somebody in presenting the gospel. We can't go but in humility and with compassion, even whoever it is, and then we go in power because we know that God has given us that power. It is God's power we go into and not ours, and we go in faith. God says for us to go, and we go. We travel and do that, and we go in obedience. It is a command of us to go. And expect great things from God, attempt great things for God. So we can all do that, can't we? We can do that. We can do it in our workplace. We can do it in our homes, our families. We can expect great things from God. That's our faith. And then we can attempt great things for God. And that's our compassion. So tonight, we're going to spend just a little bit of time on some the videos. Every time I go to Haiti, it's an adventure. I really don't know what I'm going to do because things change so much. Traveling there is, even in the United States, if you travel in the United States on an airplane, it's an adventure. So our video, I think, is going to be kind of chronologically done for days. And if you're ready, we landed in Cap Haitian. First time I ever landed in Cap Haitian. Usually go into Port-au-Prince. Port-au-Prince has gotten so bad that the Mission Aviation, who I usually fly with, they pulled out. And 1st of March, I had my flight already in Port-au-Prince. I had my Mission Aviation flight ready to go for that week, and it all got canceled. So I had to make adjustments. And God, this is Cap Haitian. This is a town or city. It's a pretty big city, 200,000 or 300,000 people, and never been there before. It's a small airport. It's getting bigger because people can't fly into Port-au-Prince, and so they fly there. You get off on the tarmac, and you walk inside. It's a very, very small airport, but this is us, our ship, our plane that landed there, and there's the little airport right there. We're walking into customs there. This is so we landed there about it. I traveled all night. I got up Saturday morning. Dina and I did some things. I left the house about 3 o'clock that afternoon, and we were supposed to left out of New Orleans at 9 o'clock, but it was 1:30 in the morning. Next morning, didn't have any sleep that night. I find a vehicle to drive. I thought I had one reserved, but it was with Avis. I knew that was rolling the dice on that. And they call it Avis, but it's really not Avis. They had a Nissan Sentra, I think, is the only thing they had, and there was no way that would work because we had to have some kind of four-wheel drive vehicle, and was able to get a Toyota 4Runner, and it did the job for us. But this is on the map. I tried to Google it, everything, and it said it was an 8-hour trip. It ended up taking us 14 hours. So it was, but this is some of the terrain that we went through. I'd never been on this road. I had called some people that had been on it, and it had been a few years, but they said, "Oh yeah, it's a good road." But it wasn't. It hadn't had anybody working on it in a long time. At one time, it did have asphalt, but the asphalt had all washed away. It was a bridge that had fallen in, and we was driving through there, and some of the local. I happened to be in a little community, and I thought they was trying to flag us down, so I stopped and They told us that the bridge is out, and so we had to go. They had to show us how to get around and cross the river where it was shallow, and we were able to do that. All right. We got through this one town, Guanaive. Now, I've been to the Guanaive. Took us about 6 hours to get here, and then we got bogged down because of this Highway 1, which we were on. It was going to go on up to where Mount of Olive. They were having a carnival there, and it was packed out with partying, dancing, and drinking, and we made it all the way through the carnival, and we got to the end. There was a vehicle crossways, 15-passenger van, so we had to turn around in the crowd and make our way back through town and take off a couple little roads, and finally made it through and got back around to where we needed to go. It cost us a good hour or longer in that town. Now we've gone through that town. We've gotten it's getting, as you can tell, the sun's beginning to set. The Caribbean is right there. It can be a beautiful area. This is Highway 1 that takes us to Mount of Olive. And very few people travel this Highway 1. Now, motorcycles do, but not a lot of cars. I think we got a video of a little bit of next one, maybe. This is about midnight that night. Yeah, you have, and some of these, when you go over these ridges, I mean, it's pitch dark. There's, obviously there is no night lights, and you're not sure you can't see below your nose of your car, vehicle, and you're not sure if the road is still there, if it's going left or right, and so my translators were asleep. I had 2 translators with me, and they were asleep most of the way. There's a motorcycle coming that direction. The caution sign coming up, I guess. Okay. This is where we slept. That's our beds there. Yeah. On Tuesday, we got out there on Monday morning at 3 a.m. Tuesday, they called me for a 4 o'clock prayer meeting at the church. Well, they didn't call me. I heard the bell ring, and I got up and went. I knew they had it on Tuesday. I don't normally go because I never remember, and I don't usually hear the bell ring. She come in a nightgown, but it was okay. It was only about 20 people maybe showed up. A couple little kids in there. We can hold it up right there. When I got there on Monday, usually when I'm at Pastor Finney's yard, he's got oranges and lemons and mangoes. Avocados. He has a well-established yard with a lot of food, and but there was nothing growing on there. A lot of times when you go, there's beans planted everywhere. There's yams or sweet potatoes, and there was nothing in the trees, nothing on the ground. So I was talking to them, and they said it hadn't rained in 5 months. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but if it is, it hadn't rained since I was there last time. And so they were hurting for food. Obviously they don't have a Walmart. Believe it or not, they don't even have a Dollar General up there. They say they're everywhere, but they're not in Haiti. And so this is one of the pastor's wives. But we're going to get back to a story about at the end. So remember the prayer meeting. This is the pastor's daughter. Did I say wife? I'm sorry. But she's a sweet young lady. She is pastor of a church we've been working on their we built them a sanctuary. We're still working on it, and they have school and church in it now. All right, go ahead. This is a school. This is Bethel community. Back a while ago, you saw one of my translators walking down the street. We went to that community, that town. It's about 2 hours away. We bought food, and I want to thank you guys, those who helped. We were able to buy about $900 worth of food. It's all we could get in our. We had a bigger vehicle once we got up there. We wouldn't have been able to get near about as much in that Forerunner. But we come back through, we were stopping at the churches, and we was giving them food, rice and beans and oil, and that sort of thing. Everybody was very glad to get it. All right.
Fourth grade. This is fourth grade.
Now this is we built this over the last 3 or 4 years. We've been working on this church. This is the church we built, and this is the kids at that school that we support every month. We send them, pay for their teachers' salaries. Sometimes we are able to buy food, and we'll send food for the kids also. This is one of 6 other schools that we work with. Some of the teachers there they are. This is where I'm staying at the pastor's house. He has a bunch of turkeys. One lady, she cooks for me. She's real happy. She's baking me a cake, and this is another construction project we're working on right now. They're actually putting concrete on a roof. We had put, Steve and I had went about 3 years ago and put a roof on it with tin and rafters. But 6 months later, the tin was rotting, rusting, and so wasn't no need to continue to do that. So we just tore everything off, and we do a concrete roof on that. It's cost a lot of money to do, and the contractor's done a really good job, very good job of it. We're going to pour the last part probably tomorrow, I hope, this area right here. We've poured half of it. All right.
This is the church we're going to work on. There's that door we're going to replace.
Oh, okay. I didn't know who that was talking.
Paint this building. These are 2 water cisterns. It supplies this community with a lot of water. This is one of the classrooms, Sunday school rooms, and school rooms. It's the newest building. It's very nice. Behind it is the kitchen. And that's the toilets, men's and ladies. It's another classroom here. And you go around, and that's back to the church. It's a nice area, needs a lot of work on it to get it updated somewhat. Thank you.
And that church is where I have my home base. When I go, that's where I stay there, and then we branch out to the other communities. That pastor won't let me go anywhere else. He's just really afraid. He doesn't like me to go out at all, but he wants me to just stay there. He said, "You need to bring people to you," and I said, "No, I'm okay. We're going to go." But what we're going to do there, we're planning on. I told them we got some maintenance stuff and haven't done anything. I've been going there for almost 10 years, and we haven't done anything to the facilities. So we're planning on painting those buildings. We got to replace some shutters. Got the wooden shutters that are beginning to rot. We got some doors that are termites have got in them. We're going to replace a couple of wooden doors with metal doors, and we'll get the local people, church people, to paint for us. I'll pay them some also to do that. But we haven't started on that, but that's our project. Make that area a lot prettier. And when I first went, it was really nice. And they had fixed it up, I think, for us. And they haven't been able to do anything else since. But it's going to, I think, when I go back, I'll see a big difference in that community, in that church. Last time I showed you some stuff, we talked about this little girl and went and visited.
What was for supper? Corn? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that sounds good. How did you fix it?
Come on quickly.
And then quickly,
Aki so quickly. Eh? Vous savez l'huile, l'épice? He just used some oil and it's spicy.
This is their new house.
Ça c'est nouvelle maison, hein?
They have beds, they have a table.
That the house we built, the house for that that lady and her grandchild, and their church did such a beautiful thing. When they got completed, the ladies of the church got together. They brought beds. They had a little table. They brought cups. They brought pots, all kinds of stuff, and they had sheets on their beds. They'd never had that. It was just such a beautiful thing. Curtains on the windows, curtains on the doors. The little house we built them is about a 10 by 20. It's 2 rooms. Obviously, it doesn't have a bathroom. That's all it is. I think the next video they take me in and show me the inside of the house. But the ladies come. They actually took and washed those two. They took bath water and bathed them. They scrubbed their feet. I mean, they stripped them down and bathed them completely. They sent me videos of all of that. But it was so sweet of them. They fixed the lady's hair up and put makeup on her and the little kid. And they actually also brought them some clothes and shoes. And they had a meal together there was probably, I don't have a video of that, they had sent to me about 2 months ago. And it was just I had no idea they would do that, but it was such a sweet thing for them to do.
Qui est? Non, c'est là, c'est les mêmes. Yeah, on va parler.
Did you ever think you would have a house like this?
Est-ce que vous avez jamais pensé que vous avez un caille comme ça? Est-ce que vous avez jamais pensé que vous avez un caille comme ça? No, I never think. I would have a house like that.
It's a beautiful home now.
C'est une belle maison, vous voyez, une belle caille? She invite you to come in.
Oh yeah, we'd love to come in and see your new furniture and everything.
That was actually her
It's
childhood
your
bed.
whose bed?
Porque sabon sa?
Kabun sa si kabun tige.
Is this your bed?
Tige timun
Huh?
ta.
That's her old bed.
Okay.
That's bed that's still there for a long time.
Si kabun ti fi.
And now is the little girl use it.
It's your bed. Okay.
Kabun ti fi ali. E si kabun tige mde pi timun.
Yeah, she has that bed since she was a young girl.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, who did the drawing on it?
Qui est-ce qui fait dessin ça soleil? The little girl.
She did. That's very good.
C'est très bien.
That's some more of the construction we got going. This is one of the pastor's daughter. I think she's 9 years old. This right here is another area we're is our next project. We're going to build a church up there on, along this mountain here. They already have a church.
This is the area of our next church. The church is way up on top of that hill mountain there. We want to bring it down here where more people from the valley and stuff will be able to attend. So this is going to be probably a 30 by 46 building.
There's a ground moving machine there. I don't know why it's there, but I've used it to help fix some of the roads, and they're gonna. I've got to pay for the fuel and the guy to operate it, and they're gonna make a road up there so we bring in some materials, and then he's gonna flatten out the area that we're gonna build the building on, so it won't be so much elevation problem as so it'll be a pretty flat, and we'll probably get that done in the next month or so, and be kind of just moving along. It'll take me 5 or 6 years, 7, 8 years to complete that church to the point where I say it's completed. And when I say that, it won't have carpet, it won't have sheetrock, but it will be nice when we finish. From this point up to there, Steve, it's a pretty long walk, isn't it? It's probably, getting to there, you feel like you've walked a pretty good walk, but that's not even a third of the way on up there. It does get pretty long, tall. I'm not sure how tall the mountain is. Maybe I'm going to say 2,500 feet elevation up there, something like that. This is another school. They had me a little program. The kids performed, and we fed all the kids and their parents that came. A lot of their parents came. In this school, we just have kindergarten through 6th grade. That teacher, she's not new to the community, but she's new as our teacher, and she was doing a very good job. Luna is her name. I'm not sure if they're praying or saying a Bible verse.
la plus grande gloire. Amen.
Those two back there, we had 3 make profession of faith, and I spoke at the end of that thing, and they were there with. It's a long story, but they were there at the thing, I think, for their younger brother, and after I spoke and presented the gospel, they come afterwards, after I left, and wanted to make a profession of faith. And actually, their little brother did too. He was about 12. This is my cooks. They cook all the time when I'm there. That was supper. I'm not 100% sure why they cook all the time, but that's what it takes. I know everything takes a lot of effort, but and they do a good job. Porridge, I'm not 100% sure. No, it looks like thick gravy, but it is some kind of flour, and I think there is maybe some crushed roots of some type. Maybe a banana in there to give it some. It's not bad. It's not bad. I don't argue about it. I don't fuss about it. It was 3 of us, and we had each had a piece of bread and some porridge, and we was good. I was part of a funeral. There was a young lady that's another church that we had built and dedicated this past July, and they had a 19-year-old young girl. She had a baby, and the baby lived, but she died. That's very common there. They're several hours from a real hospital, and it was delivered by a midwife too. This is the pastor of that church and has his youngest daughter. After the funeral, I got there, they asked me to come. I come, and I had old clothes on, and everybody else all dressed up, and they asked me to come up front. And in a few minutes, after a couple of preachers everybody's got suits and dresses and ties, and they said, "You're next." And I said, "Well, I don't even know this young lady," but I got up and spoke and tried to encourage the church and the family. But once we got out of there, the congregation walked over 3 miles. That's Pastor Sosma and Steve, and they walked all the way to Bombard, that cemetery there. You know how far that is. It's up and down one mountain after another. And then they walked back to. They had I had some rice and beans we had left for the family to have afterwards. All right. They had a band, and this is along the way. A band is typical Haitian. They always have one, even in the United States. I went to a funeral in Florida last year of a Haitian funeral, and they had a bigger band, but it was same music and everything else. I walked with them maybe 3/4 of a mile, and the pastor was driving a car behind us. He finally said, "No, you got to come in and get in the car." He was afraid I was going to overheat or something, I guess. This is a family that their dad had abandoned them, and I'd asked them to come see me because I have some work I want them to do, those boys to do, and I told them, Pastor Finney, I said, I don't want to just give them money. I want them to work for and so they had agreed to do some work for us. Yeah, he's got some. He was born that way. I thought he might have had broken them, but he was born that way. Yeah, his legs and feet, it was just messed up. But he could walk, so that's a blessing. This is the contractor that we're using right now. I like him a lot. Matter of fact, when we had when the children had their program, they weren't working that day. They had taken that day off, and they're from Port-au-Prince. He brought his whole crew up, and they've been working on it. Of course, Port-au-Prince not a good place to be, so they're kind of glad he brought his family up. And I'd met him 5 or 6 years ago, but it's the first time he's done a project for us. And we didn't have some people to play the guitar and to play the keyboard, but he and one of his workers come up. They all actually come to the program, and you know they played the keyboard and played the guitar, and yeah, they really were very nice men, which is unusual. You know, like it might be here, but it was very unusual there too to have Christian men in a whole group. And I asked him. I really never talked to him a whole lot, and I asked him, was he a Christian? He said yes. He said all of my men are Christians too. So that's good to know. And so hopefully we'll be able to use him for a while. And it's so difficult. You can't imagine the pressure they have not to take advantage of you. And you know, and we try to keep it. I don't send a lot of money. You know, we try to work it in increments where that doesn't happen, hopefully. This is Pastor Finney's 2 little kids, I think 9 years old and 8 years old. I think the little boy's named Finney, just like his daddy, and the little girl's named Finnette, I believe. That was a nice guy. They was cooking up some goat for us at last night. They'd killed a goat. I don't know why they waited till late, till the last day, but they killed a goat and cooked it, and no lights. And that's us going home there. It did not take us 14 hours, but we. My guys got up. I guess they were anxious to leave. They got up at 1:30 that morning. They woke me up. They were praying, and the walls were rattling. Both of them was praying. I'm like, what happened to silent prayer, you know? Because I knew what was going to happen. They were going to get me up, and then they had a phone. They was watching. One of them was watching something on his phone. Finally, I got it. I said, all right, let's go. 2 o'clock in the morning, because when we got in the car, they was asleep, you know, and I knew that's what was going to happen. And so we was driving about 4 or 5 hours in the dark. And the roughest part of the drive was in the mountains and stuff there. Yeah, I started to start singing for them, and but I said no, I'll let them sleep. So it was only 12 hours going back, and which I thought we could make it a little bit quicker if I could see the drive and a little better. Oh yeah, we beat the traffic going. Yeah, I think this was actually a hotel we stayed at. That's one of my translators there. That's Gene. He's trying to steal his knife from him. And Cap Haitian is right on the ocean, and that's the end of our trip. A very good trip. I'm very thankful that we were able to make the trip. Like I said, you just never know what to expect. Every time you go, it's going to be different. You can make plans, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to follow them. Oh yeah, back by the at the 4 a.m. Prayer meeting, they asked me to do a devotion. I did devotion, and then they asked me to do the end prayer. They had been praying and everything, so God impressed upon me to pray for rain. And I was, me and God argue sometimes, God, I don't need to do this, do you really want me to do this? Pray for rain. What if it doesn't happen? I'm thinking this while I'm trying to pray this prayer. But I went ahead and prayed it. I said, God, I'm asking you to bring rain to this community, to this mountain. And I'm asking, would you please bring it today? And I prayed that where they all could hear me. And so we got up and we left and was gone all day. And on our way back, I could see the mountain from where we was coming. And there was, on top of this mountain, this huge cloud. And you could see the sheeting of rain coming down. And I still didn't get too excited because I'd prayed for rain on Mount of Olive. I'm thinking, I wonder if it's raining on Mount of Olive, And because I didn't know exactly which mountain that was. And but before I left that morning, I went back and I had a raincoat, and I said, I better get my raincoat because it may rain today. So I went back, got my raincoat, and had it with me. And actually, I had to get out in the rain. I put the raincoat on a little bit too. But sure enough, it rained, I'm going to say 2 or 3 inches. My driver said, we was coming back, he said, I heard the word, there's a monsoon. He was talking in Creole, but he was like, it was like a monsoon going on up there, and it was. And it only happened on that mountain, Mount of Olive. Yeah, and as you can imagine, that word went out all over the area. People were talking about what had happened because the ones that were in that morning knew that I'd prayed for rain. It wasn't nothing that I did. God did it, and God was faithful for the prayer. Expecting great things from God. Attempt great things for God, and He did. He did a great thing because, as I said, there's nothing growing on the ground. You go by a mango tree and a bunch of the little mangoes is all laying on the ground because hasn't been enough water for the mango trees to produce the mangoes to grow. Those things are very, very important. If they can get rice and beans, that's okay, but you have to have growing children, women particularly, has to have mangoes and avocados and bananas and stuff for their vitamin intake. So, and not having any green or any vegetables or fruit is very devastating on your body. And so we was coming in, the rain had went away, and water was running down the mountains, down the ditches and stuff, and the men and women was already had their hose on their shoulder with their bag of beans or whatever, going to plant. they couldn't plant until the rain came. And so very thankful for that, to be able to experience something like that. It was very moving, and and those guys, they wake up every morning knowing they're trusting God. That's the reason they have a 4 a.m. prayer meeting, because they're trusting God. And that's not just that church, but that's going to be almost every church in the area. That's what they do. Any other questions? Well, we have Layton, we have Mount of Olive, we have Calvary, we're starting Samaria, we have Bethel, we have the peninsula, and we built the peninsula, and they've been asking ever since. The peninsula was one of the first places that drew me for this area, and we built them a church, and the structure's good, but the tin there is rusting out. So, and they've been asking for a school ever since we built this building. 6 years ago, I think, and so we're going to have to redo that, the whole roof. We're going to try to find some galvalume or galvanized tin that's not going to rust as quickly. We're going to have, I don't know how we're going to find it, but we need something else there. And then we're going to, in the back of it, we're going to build, I told them I wanted to build a 16 by 24 area, split wall in between it. And we'll have 2 classrooms, be Sunday school classes or schools. And that way the parents won't have to send their kids. If they go to school, they have to send them to another town. And they'll at least be able to keep them there to the 6th grade. It would only, most of my schools are only to the, is kindergarten through 6th grade, because it becomes a second level when you go beyond that. And we have one, Bethel has a grade from 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and that's the only school. But what do you do there? You have to bring in teachers for every class, whether it's language or math or history or whatever. A certified teacher has to come in. Number one, that's hard to find. Number two, it costs a lot more money to have them, and they only teach that class. And they may teach a class in 2 or 3 different schools in the area also. So but it is something they would all love to have, and it would be nice, but the cost of that it gets really expensive, and so that we've only done it in Bethel. You know, but it's rusting from the inside and out. The inside is more rusty than the outside. Yeah, just the salt, and it's just, yeah, and we talked about even doing that before we put it in, but, I don't even know if we can get it there, the coating. Yeah. So, but we're trying to, hopefully we can find some better tin and bring it in up there. That will be expensive if that's possible. But they say there is. I just haven't seen it. That one church I showed you, I panned around. Now that church has some good tin on it. That church, that big church that we're going to paint and stuff, it's been there since 1989. And it's got the original tin on it. So they at one time had good tin, but all their stuff comes out of China. It's just not very good. Anybody else? Thank y'all for coming. I did. Coming home was about the same way. I had very little sleep. But God took care of me. He gave me the ability to continue on and do everything we needed to do. Coming back was about the same way. I flew into Cap Haitian to Fort Lauderdale. Then we got a delay in Fort Lauderdale. We got to Atlanta. Missed my flight from Atlanta to New Orleans. So I had to spend the night in Atlanta. And then the only flight I could get was 5 a.m. the next morning, go back to Tampa, Florida, and then go to New Orleans. But we made it home Sunday afternoon when he was having the tea. Supposed to have made it home about 10 o'clock Saturday night, but you know, you just never know what's going to happen, and you know, you don't, you know, those things are minimal. You know, they're really not bad things. Anything like that, you know, I said, you know, a lot of the things that goes on, a lot of people may see them as, man, I won't ever do this again. But when you know what could be, and that God has provided every step of the way, you don't mind it. Anybody else? Brother Joe?
Ron, thank you so much for sharing tonight, and not just sharing about the experience, but literally sharing your heart. Each time you go and each time you come back, you see how God not only works through you, but God works in you, and we benefit from that as your church family, and God bless you. I know there are those of you who, there are some of you who support Ron's ministry through Sin Ministries. I would just encourage you to prayerfully consider that option if you have some extra funds that you can, not a lot of folks have extra funds, but 7 schools, and each school with multiple teaching staff, and providing not only salaries but providing food, supplements for the kids as well as the staffs that they engage, and the construction cost of buildings. It's quite a bit of money, and so and God takes care of it. It's amazing, and I would encourage you to consider praying about allowing God to use you to be a part of that too, because it's well worth the expense of sharing. I'm looking forward to hearing from our Costa Rican group as we come to our sharing night at the end of the month, and so you be in prayer for them as they come and share with us as well. Anything else anybody's got? We're going to rehearse. Our choir's going to rehearse again for a run-through and get in preparation for Friday. Don't forget Good Friday service at 6 o'clock, and we look forward to seeing you there. Father God, we come and just say thank you for this day, the beauty of the day that you blessed us with, but Father, more than that, just the presence of your Spirit that's been with us this morning as well as this evening. I thank you for Ron. I thank you for the safety that you provided for him, the protection that you surrounded him with as you traveled with him. And I thank you for bringing him home to us safe. I pray, God, that you would strengthen his spirit and provide the funding that's needed for the accomplishments that you've laid out before him. God, you've done it time and time again. So we just count on that fact that you're going to continue that. Thank you for letting us be a part of that as his church family. And God, I pray your blessing over each individual in this room tonight. Ask God for your watch care, and God, bring us back as we look forward to gathering again in the days ahead. I pray this in